Galen Marek carried a tattered lightsaber hilt with exposed crystal encasing at its center. He would change his lightsaber color frequently throughout his conquest, starting with a red crystal, then to a green crystal, and finally settling on his father's old blue crystal, which he described as having a lighter fit in his hand. Though Darth Vader was a Form 5 specialist, he did not teach Galen in this form, instead wanting him to mold his own style. Starkiller would go on to do just that, adopting qualities from many lightsaber forms including Sarisu and Juyo, with a base in Xi'an. However, he had familiarity with all the lightsaber forms, able to decipher them in his opponent's movesets. He was able to do this because he grew up with a lightsaber combat droid named Proxy, who cataloged all the styles of previous lightsaber users. Therefore, Galen became proficient with Sarisu, the all-defensive form, through his training with Obi-Wan Kenobi's avatar. Juyo, which was an all-offensive form, he taught himself, but he used to great effect against Ram Koda and Maris Brood. More often than not, he utilized the inverted variant of the Xi'an form. He would employ this against most of his blaster-wielding foes, but the style would also trickle over into his lightsaber combat as well. All things considered, Galen was a fantastic duelist. He understood the intricacies of the other forms enough to defend against them, and he employed his own with great effectiveness. Starkiller carried 2 standard lightsaber hilts with 2 red crystals. Eventually, Ram Koda would supply him with 2 blue crystals, left over from the Clone Wars. The Starkiller clone would have knowledge of all lightsaber forms, much like the original, but he favored the style of Jar-Kai. His use of Jar-Kai would extend from his focused practices of Ataru and Niman. But what was most interesting, and most unlike anyone I've analyzed before, is that he memorized his lightsaber sequences, going into a trance-like order of movements. To me, this suggests that he was not as versatile in his moveset as a true Niman master would be. Also, the Jar-Kai variant of Niman, while nimble, held less strength than most other lightsaber forms. However, his use of Niman would help immensely with his ability to integrate his force abilities into his lightsaber moveset. Just like the original, Starkiller would also hold his lightsabers in the inverted form of Xi'an, suggesting his style was likely unorthodox and unpredictable. This round is the biggest challenge for these two. I believe a lot of this match comes down to their abilities with their lightsabers. To analyze how well each would do against each other, I'll be looking into their fights against Darth Vader. First, let's look at Marek's fight with Vader. From its start, we see that Galen is a bit out of his element, shocked by Vader's extensive strength. But he was able to stand his ground with his use of Sarisu, eventually utilizing his speed to contend with his master. But it wasn't only his speed that would help him. He also utilized Juyo's Dumage tactics to work at Vader's self-respect. These techniques in harmony with each other would enable him to be victorious over his master. Now let's look at Starkiller's fight with Vader. The fight was far more cautious. Vader had certainly gotten better since their last fight. He was unaffected by any Dumage techniques, and he retooled his armor to combat the effects of Force Lightning. He was also more favored to Sarisu than he was to Juyo. What's more, Vader was matching Starkiller's speed, so we can see without a doubt that Starkiller was facing the better of the two versions of Vader. Starkiller was only able to manifest an edge through his concentrated use of the Force, but he never managed to outmatch Vader blade to blade. So who should get the advantage? The more obvious answer may be to give it to Galen. After all, he defeated Vader by way of his blade when Starkiller could not. But I do not think it's that simple. Starkiller was facing the better fighter, and he was still contending long enough to find an opening. With that in mind, I would say yet again that Galen Marek and Starkiller were equals in terms of their dueling abilities. A fight between these two would of course be extremely close and extremely taxing. Let's set up this fight. Let's say it takes place on a Camino platform. I believe both Galen and Starkiller would attack each other simultaneously. Galen with Juyo, Starkiller with Niman Jarkai. Of course, their first exchange would be a size-up, as they would both be smart fighters. They will be exchanging blows with intent to find holes in the other's defenses rather than trying to end the fight quickly. Eventually, they'd break off, taking a breather and thinking over the assault. Galen would decipher Starkiller's use of Jarkai, taking special note that the form lacked strength, though it excelled in mobility. The Starkiller clone would decode that Galen was proficient with Juyo, presuming he would have a weak defense. With this thought, Starkiller would spring another attack, this time employing Ataru Bladework in a flurry of speed. Galen would then employ Surisu, batting off Starkiller's barrage with some difficulty. In a quick move, Galen would dodge one of Starkiller's strikes, and with an outstretched hand, Galen throws lightning from his fingertips, connecting with Starkiller's ribs. Starkiller would fall back, but he would land with cat-like balance. Mustering up the energies within himself, the clone throws out a torrent of lightning. Galen catches the lightning in his hand, repelling its effects. They lock each other in a series of sparks and spasms, neither gaining an apparent advantage. Eventually, the energy ball between them is too much, and they both fall back bodily. They both get up slowly, shocked by the exchange. They rush each other again. They would clash their sabers with a display of speed and precision. They would throw out force repulses, waves, and lightning in perfect and direct sequences. After a very long while, after dozens of minutes of fighting, Starkiller would be plagued by flashes and visions. They will become more and more prominent as their fight dragged on and on. Visions of Vader, of his father, of his mother, and most of all, visions of Juno Eclipse. One of his visions is just the advantage Galen needs. It only takes a fraction of a second. Starkiller spasms at the thought of Juno, just enough for Galen to break through his guard, piercing his clone through the gut. As a result, I declare Galen Marek, the assassin apprentice, the original Starkiller, the victor. Of course, this is just my opinion. I would love to see your thoughts and comments. Discussing different scenarios is always my favorite part. Do you think Starkiller could have gotten the better of Galen? Or do you agree that the ultimate victory lies with the original host? As always, peace, love, and may the Force be with you. Always.
And most recently, Star Wars: A New Dawn. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you the one, the only, John Jackson Miller.
Hey, how's it going?
Alright, cool. So you're Haggard, I am the boy who lived. So I cheated a little bit. I played last night just to see how to play.
Oh,